right, this is the Committee on Government Operations, Public Safety, and Public Service. This is Monday, September 19, 2016 at 6 p.m. I have Councilor Buchanan.
Here.
I have Councilor Capoon. Here. I have Councilor McLaughlin.
Here.
We have 3 members present. We do have a quorum.
Please stand and salute the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's right there.
I have one regret. Councilman Del Sola had a family commitment and will not be able to attend tonight.
All right, the first piece of business is a resolution by Councilor DePiero and Councilor McLaughlin regarding the new tolls being implemented on both sides of the Tobin Bridge.
Councilman McLaughlin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Can I invite Representative McGonigal to appear before us this evening?
Representative, you could just state your name and title, please, for the record.
Joe, just turn the mic on the top there.
Joseph McGonigal, State Representative.
Thank you for
Everett.
appearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative, good evening.
Good evening, Michael.
I appreciate you appearing this evening. I do know that Senator DiDomenico has called what the previous commitment was unable to make it back into the city this evening, but he and I and yourself have spoken on this issue several times, and I don't know if you have any information that you want to share with the city tonight on the toll issue, but I know that we've had some conversations preliminary since this piece was introduced quite a while ago. On the tolls, I know Mayor DeMaria has worked on this issue collaboratively. We were hoping that by reducing the tolls, it would keep more cars on the Tobin Bridge, northbound and southbound, and off the city streets. I know that we're waiting for some data to come back from the Mass Pike term to see if those numbers do salute what we think is going on. But if you have some information to share, be my guest.
Through the chair, back in 2012, 2013, they had meetings about, all the changes on the Mass Pike tolls with the gantries and everything. And sad to say, back then, Everett was left out of those public hearings. And the way we found out, the city of Everett is, we're all familiar with that, Mr. Chairman, was that the Boston Globe and the Herald come out with articles saying that this is what they're doing. They're changing the tolls north and south. And if you remember back at that time, our Mayor DeMaria was very upset with it, and he had a meeting with MassDOT officials. So he stayed on top of it. What I will say, with the senator and I speaking with Tom Timlin of MassDOT, the director, and Steve Collins, an assistant director, their studies, so we understand this, their feasibility studies, their traffic studies show that there's more traffic leaving Boston. And don't forget that the toll is going into Boston. So there's less traffic going on the Tobin Bridge going in than coming out. And where's that traffic coming? Where's it going to? It's coming down Route 99. So personally, if their statistics, traffic statistics, their data is correct, I'm happy. I think it will alleviate some of the traffic on 99. So that's one good thing. They're changing all of this. As a member of transportation, all of us are going to find out. All the toll booths are going to be going. You're going to see even the tunnels, the Callahan Tunnel, Ted Williams Tunnel. That's going to be AETV, all electronic tolling. And studies have proven elsewhere in the country that it helps with, it's a safety issue. So there's nobody crashing into toll booths or getting into accidents after they leave a toll. The EPA is ecstatic over it because it's an emissions control, area where we're not stepping on gas and not going forward, and we're just going through at a certain rate, 15 miles an hour. So it's very interesting to see how it works out. And anybody, to our constituents, the Easy Pass years ago, we had to pay for it. And now it's going to be free. I mean, that's gonna happen all through the Mass Pike. You're gonna see all the tolls, never mind just on the Tobin Bridge. But I'm hoping that their data is correct, that it won't lose revenue towards the state, because that revenue is strictly used to fix the bridge, take the maintenance on the bridge, which brings in about 30 million a year, which I was shocked at. That's what the tolls roughly bring in, so, and that money is strictly used for the tunnels in the surrounding area on that bridge and to maintain that bridge. They keep repainting it every year. It's an ongoing issue. It will never stop. That'll never stop. So, I'm here to answer any other questions that hopefully I can.
Representative, and I'm glad that you do serve on transportation, because I think Everett is a huge cut through from the North Shore into Boston, and you see it every single day living in Ward 6 and near the Rotary, what the traffic is like in the morning, in the afternoon, but more so in the morning. It's an absolute nightmare on the Rotary and in Ward 6, and that was my main reason of bringing this issue up was, and I've spoken with Senator DiDomenico and your office, and we're going to get some data from Ms. Timley to show what the ratio has been since the tolls have been decreased but added to the other side. So we want to know if more cars are continuing to stay on the Tobin Bridge and not get off.
That hasn't happened yet. Sometime in October.
Correct.
That'll happen, so.
So hopefully after that fact, we can get some
That's right.
data
That's right.
of that to show the ratio, which is what we're looking for. Because I know that Chelsea and some other communities or surrounding communities, so the Tobin Bridge can get a reduction on the Tobin Bridge because they've been identified as a surrounding community to the Tobin Bridge. If we can prove that, hopefully we can work together to make Everett a surrounding community for the Tobin Bridge. And I'm not sure that it's going to happen, but it is something to keep a close eye on and to look at, because there is a congestion in Ward 6. Main Street every morning is backed up for blocks and blocks. So we need to try to work together to do something to relieve some of this traffic. And it's not Everett's traffic, it's just Everett is a cut through for the North Shore.
And Council, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's the next step that I think we should take, is once that data is complete and we can, rely on that data, is to go back to the state, through myself, through the senator, and ask for a discount from going with that, because I believe Revere, Chelsea, Charlestown, they have that. I'm not sure whether that passed the legislation last year in Revere, but that's something that we, as a city, need to look at, because I think it's well-deserved for us.
And that's the reason why we put it on there. I know all of our councilors are concerned about the issue, and I appreciate you appearing before us this evening, Representative, and I'll yield the floor to any of my colleagues who have other questions.
Just in regards to the electronic type of toll that they're
Yep.
going to be doing, well, I drove through it, and I think it was Chicago, and it was, you just keep going,
Keep
drive right
going.
through. It's going to be very simple, so I think that's a step in the right direction.
So
as
do I,
far
Mr.
as-
Chairman. It's
Yeah.
being set up all over the Mass Pike, and it's not an increase in the tolls. It
Yeah.
isn't like you're gonna pay more going through each, what they call gantries.
Mhm.
But I think it's a more effective way, and I honestly believe now it's equitable that people, all these people coming over the Tobin Bridge are gonna pay a fair share of going over that.
Sure.
And I just hope it does alleviate the traffic coming through
I
Everett.
I just request that what you said, you and the senator would actually be making sure that there is a discount here, because they've been reaping the benefits in Chelsea and Charlestown and surrounding cities that touch
Yeah.
the Tobin.
Yeah.
We were like you said, there was
Yeah.
no part of us being mentioned in that
Yeah.
before, so.
Yeah. And, Mr. Chairman, it was sad that we all learned that the tolls were being, north and south. We read about it in the newspaper. In speaking to MassDOT, they are trying to be a lot more transparent with how they give us that information. And they understand they made a mistake, and they admit to it, that they did. So they're trying to be more transparent, especially with the city of Everett, and I think that came about with the mayor's meeting
Sure.
that he had back in June. So
You're,
thank you.
you're also on that committee now, aren't you, Representative? Are you on that committee as well, Transportation?
I am, I have been, Mr. Chairman, for the
That
last 2
helps.
years. Yeah,
That
thanks, Mr.
definitely
Chairman.
helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Pleasure on the Peace Council.
I'm going to refer it back to sponsor, and I'll work closely with the senator and representative to, once that data comes out, and being able to move forward and maybe introduce something in a future date for reduction on the Tobin Bridge. So I'll refer it back to sponsor at this time.
Motion made and seconded to refer back to sponsor. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you for appearing tonight, Representative. Please read item number 2.
All right, item number 2, this order by Councilor John McKinnon and Wayne Matusky, the candidates for election process.
I spoke to Councilman Matusky via phone today. He basically is requesting grant further time. Reason being is because we received information on this also from Boston and also from the state. We need to review that so that we can come up with something productive and actually have it become an ordinance here. So
Okay.
I would ask,
I'll put that in form of motion.
thank you. Request for further time. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? You have done so. Please read item number 3.
All right. Item number 3, this is a resolution by Councilors Frank Capone and Michael McLaughlin, the environmental impact of plastics.
Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we could we please invite Ms. Katie Rogers forward?
Ms. Rogers? Could you just state your name and your address, please?
My name is Katie Rogers, and I live at 78 Inglewood Avenue in Everett.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rogers, for being here this evening. We've talked about the issue of plastics over time, Councilman McLaughlin as well. We realize that plastics are used every day. They have tremendous utility, but they also do provide some issues and concerns for the environment. I think that you've got some research and some information you wanted to share.
Yes, I do. So first I have a statement, which I will read to everybody, and then I have a handout that I can pass out with some more information. I'm a lifelong resident and recent Everett business owner. Most of you know me through my photojournalism work with the Independent Newspaper Group, but I stand before you today to address my concerns regarding balloon releases and the use of disposable plastic bags within the city of Everett. As background on myself, at the age of 14, I became one of the youngest volunteers in the New England Aquarium, going through vigorous training regarding aquatic life and the environment before giving live animal presentations to guests by the dozens. In high school, I initiated a conversation during a rally to get recycling bins placed in the art rooms, which later helped me earn a scholarship for college from Schnitzer Northeast Recycling. During college, I studied oceanography and resumed volunteering at the New England Aquarium by applying my artistic abilities to help create the coral that you see throughout the giant ocean tank today. Additionally, I volunteered at other animal-related organizations and helped coordinate a Facebook group for lost and found pets in the community and surrounding areas with great success in reuniting owners with their pets. Needless to say, I've been very proactive in animal welfare and environmental issues throughout most of my life. I am here to address a consideration in banning balloon releases and cutting back on plastic bags within the perimeters of Everett. To be clear, this is not directed at any particular event, cause, business, or individual, but rather something I am informed on as a former New England Aquarium volunteer and have done more research on in recent years. As a community living very close to the ocean and a community that will undergo drastic developmental changes, particularly involving our waterfront property, I think it is time to take action, becoming a community that is also environmentally savvy. As a photographer, I cover a variety of events, some of which include balloon releases where hundreds of balloons are let loose into the sky in a ceremonial way or in remembrance of a lost loved one. My issue is not to put down any honorable cause, but I do ask for regulations that will prevent these causes from inadvertently harming animals in the process. As a resident who frequents local businesses for my shopping needs, I witnessed the overuse of plastic bags being handed out to contain shopping items, knowing that many of these bags will be a one-time use item and end up in landfills or drifting through the air in Everett streets as litter. There are alternatives to balloon releases and the use of plastic bags for everyday needs. However, there are no alternatives to the consequences these items cause when not properly disposed of. Everett can and should pave the way for these causes that are often a second thought. Released balloons can travel more than 1,000 miles before inevitably falling back to Earth. Upon their return to the surface, they land on the ground, get caught in tree branches, or in the ocean alongside the plastic bags, which are abundantly littered. In water, balloons and plastics resemble jellyfish, and animals such as sea turtles, fish, whales, dolphins, and seals have been known to mistake them for food. Since these are unable to be digested, this causes a blockage in the intestines and inevitably a slow, cruel death by starvation. Furthermore, land animals can be affected as birds get tangled in balloon strings and other creatures get caught inside of plastic bags, suffocating to death. As citizens, we rarely see the consequences of balloon releases firsthand, after we enjoy watching them briefly fade into the sky. However, taking the simple step in refraining from releasing them will do a great service to the animals in our community and miles beyond. There are currently balloon release bans in some states across the country and cities within individual states. For example, Provincetown and Nantucket both prohibit balloons altogether due to their negative impact on the environment. As far as the north of Boston area, it needs to start somewhere, and there's no reason why we should not be the community to take initiative. There are a multitude of alternatives that can take place as a substitute for ceremonial balloon releases, which I can provide examples for. There are also reusable substitutes for plastic bags that can be implemented in local shopping facilities, following the example of our neighboring cities, Somerville and Cambridge. There is no excuse to pollute our environment and harm animals strictly for a moment of pleasure watching balloons or being unwilling to use a reusable or recyclable alternative to plastic bags. In light of our renewed waterfront property coming forth, we need to instate this prior to new developments. It is critical on behalf of animals that people are educated on this matter. It is best to address these issues now before it leads to more unnecessary animal deaths. And I do have some papers that I can hand out. So after that statement, with that being said, if you have any questions or anything else that you would like to comment.
Councilman Capone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Well, thank you very much for the information that you have here and for bringing the issue to our attention. Plastics are going to end up in one of two places. It's either going to end up in landfill, it's going to end up in the water. I'm not sure to what extent regulation is possible, but the first step is always awareness. So I appreciate that, and I thank you for that. You had mentioned that there are a couple of towns that have done bans on, well, Nantucket and Provincetown. How about local communities with regards to restriction of use on plastic bags or things of that nature? Are there any surrounding communities that have already started to move on that?
Yes, actually, Somerville and Cambridge both have bans and restrictions on plastic bags. I know in Somerville it took place in effect on September 1st. I know that their main shopping facilities now have to provide paper bags or reusable bags. They sell for like a minimal fee of like 10 cents. There can be incentives for stores to encourage people to use reusable bags, such as giving them a discount or points or other means of rewarding them for being more environmentally savvy. But I do know that Cambridge and Somerville do have these laws in effect as of now.
Is that a complete ban on plastic bags?
From what I understand, I believe, and I would have to confirm this, that grocery stores are allowed to still have plastic bags.
Okay.
But it's more the shopping facilities, think Target, Christmas Tree Shop,
Sure.
those type of places.
Okay, all right. And as far as other regions in the nation, I don't know to what extent you've been able to research that, but what other parts of the country might be doing?
I haven't really researched beyond Massachusetts as far
Sure.
as that goes. I do know that on the balloon issue that there's several states and cities within other states that do have those laws in effect for
Okay.
banning balloons.
All right. Off the top of your head, do you know how many states?
Yes, I can name them. It is California, Connecticut, Florida, Tennessee, Virginia, New York, and parts of the United Kingdom and Australia.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for bringing the issue forward. Clearly, it needs more research on our part in order to try to figure out what we can do. You hear it all the time. I'm not a tree hugger by any stretch of the imagination, but we only have one planet.
Yes.
You know, and we do need to do whatever we can to collectively leave it to the next generation in as good a shape or better than we found it. So I do appreciate the information. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for all the work you did in this.
Councilman McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to first applaud Katie and her family because the work that they do on behalf of animals across our city is tremendous. Last week we had Patty Ian here talking about drug overcoming addiction, and we had somebody that really knew in depth of the issue. We again tonight have somebody sitting before us that really knows in depth the issue of animals and safety of animals and caring for animals. I've never met a family that cares more about animals and does more volunteerism and does more under the radar without anybody knowing for animals across not only Everett but the region. And they should be applauded for the efforts that they do. And it's not just Katie, it's her mom and it's her dad and it's her I see Stacia Gorgon, I'm sorry I didn't see her there. But they really care about animals. So when she brought this issue to me, I knew it was something that needed to be paid attention to because she's not somebody that's just going to sit here and talk to have her voice heard. So I went ahead and did some homework on this issue, learning more of the issue because, to be honest, it's not something you really think about on a daily basis. You don't really think about when you're releasing the balloons into the air, where they're going or what's happening to them once they're gone. It's not something that I've thought of. I'm sure you guys haven't either. But after having this issue brought to my attention, I really started to focus on it and asked more questions and got more information and learned more. I did do some homework on the other surrounding communities and the ordinances that they have in their communities and their bylaws that they've implemented. And I have wrote an ordinance, that I would like to maybe present this evening as something for consideration that we can take a look at and move forward so that we don't just talk about this, but we get something on the books and we can move faster on this item. So I have something before me. I'm not sure the proper way of presenting this, and I apologize to my colleagues, but I would like to present this to maybe the clerk of committees to ask him to look favorably upon the issue in this.
Refer that to the clerk,
Okay.
and then we'd have a chance at our next meeting to overlook it and take a copy of it so that we could see it as well. Send it to the city clerk's office. You could give it to the assistant city clerk tonight,
Okay.
and then they could research it, draft it, and then get it to us so that we could actually take a look at it ourselves. And
Okay.
then we'll come out of committee with something drafted up to where it would come out of this committee favorable and then be drafted out to the whole body.
Okay, that's great. So I'm going to ask that this ordinance or partial ordinance be referred to the city clerk's office so that the assistant.
Because
city clerk-
reason being is because there may be research that we can do to add or subtract different
Sure.
items from it, so.
I'll be very honest, I took what Nantucket had, not only due to the fact that I travel to Nantucket quite often, as my colleagues know, and I took what they had. I talked to some of their elected officials in the town today, actually, on Nantucket, and understood how they came to their conclusions, and took what they had and kind of tweaked it a little bit, and just brought it forward. So I'll refer that to the assistant city clerk so that we can work on it, and we can work on it together. But this is something that needs to happen sooner than later. So-
Well, what we'll do is you give it to the assistant city clerk, and then by the next meeting, we'll have something in writing so that it will be
Awesome.
drafted.
So I
So
will,
it's pretty, it's relatively fast.
okay.
It'll be a
that's what I-
fast track, so we'll do it
That's
that
what I
way.
wanted to hear.
If there are no other questions, please. just-
I have a question
okay.
or two,
That-
so.
I appreciate that. I'm good with my comments. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, so you'll give that to the city clerk, okay. Katie, thank you for appearing tonight, and it was a good presentation,
Thank you.
informative, and it reminds me of, I'm looking at it, and it reminds me of my daughter's college, stuff that she does.
Yeah.
It's got pictures, it's got everything, it's got everything that you need right here to check it out, so. My suggestion would be that you also look into doing something possibly on ECTV to where you can make it an awareness type thing to where they can come out and they can actually see what you just gave us here. And the whole city would see it at that point.
That's a great
So-
suggestion. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so what you would do is probably just call Ashley Costa and see if you could do probably something down there at ECTV and possibly get this out so that people will understand what you're trying to do here.
Yes, a major part of this is to do with awareness as
Sure.
well as just the laws to back it.
Yeah, and then, something like a Facebook page with this type of stuff on it to get it out to the public as well. That might be another suggestion as well. but thank you for bringing it to making us aware of it anyway.
Thank you for listening.
Councilor Capone.
Excuse customary thanks.
Excuse customary thanks. Thank you
Thank you
for
very
much.
appearing
Thank you.
tonight.
So we have a draft ordinance to look at. So is it the will of this committee to have that typed up by the clerk and then review it for changes? Or should we get it, should it stay in committee to look at it before it goes anywhere?
It stays in the committee until we release it, right?
It's up to you.
Yeah.
He's already drafted.
Mhm.
The assistant clerk put it into the,
Okay.
it actually go before, right before the city council.
Yeah.
You can take a look at that night.
Yeah.
And if you like it,
Yeah.
you can either refer back to this committee or legislative.
Yeah.
Why don't we do it, why don't we do
I'm,
it this way?
I'm,
Why don't we-
it's an important issue.
Yeah.
And I think that at least 50% or more of it is public awareness. And I was going to make the same recommendation about E ECTV, Mr. Chairman. I think it's an excellent one. Before I'm going to put an ordinance out on the floor, no disrespect to my counselor, anyone who drafted it, I want to see it before it goes anywhere, because we're going to want to tweak it in-house here. So I'd leave it up to the membership of this committee, whether you want to type it in advance and look it over, or send it to the clerk. I would ask that the sponsor type it up.
Yeah.
And then we'll keep it in committee, we'll review it,
My suggestion would be
grant further
that,
time.
to the sponsor, my suggestion would be that you type up something, ordinance form, and then send it to the assistant city clerk, so he may, his perusal, to actually do some more investigations on it and stuff like that, so that we can actually have it back here in this committee. I'd like to see it come out of this committee and us approving it, then sending it
Right.
as a whole piece to the general council. So I think that would probably be the way to go.
So Chairman, on the piece though, does it hurt by sending it out onto the floor? And if we don't like it at that point, we can refer it back into committee?
Why send, why,
Or
why
take-
would,
take
why,
the-
why send an item that's not a finished product to the floor?
Well, I kind of think that the assistant city clerk, not to speak in his favor, but I think the assistant city clerk, just briefly looking at it today and working briefly with me on it today, is kind of in favor of the piece. So I'm not sure that there's a lot of tweak on his behalf that would need to be done. It's more a discussion of the counselors and how they feel
It
on
would be
it.
discussion of the committee at that point, so it will give us a chance to have perusal of it before it goes to general council. So I think we should just look at it here. One more meeting, I mean, it's not gonna be that big of a deal, I don't think. We could actually get it done probably, what's it, September, October? Probably in October.
It's fine. We'll leave
If we
it in
do
committee,
that.
no problem. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I feel it should come out of this committee, it was presented in this committee, it should come out of this committee, and then be presented in whole, so that the whole general body can look at it and say, we can vote that night on what to do with it. So that would probably be the best way to go, I think.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that, no problem. I just wanted to know if what the reverse side was, if we had just sent it out to
Oh,
the
yeah, I
full
mean,
body.
the reverse side is, we could say, the general council, they could have many questions, and then say,
Kick it
we
back
don't
into-
like it, we'll kick it back into committee, and then you've got to do it again, so.
Yep.
I'd rather have a finished product
That's
going out.
Fair enough, absolutely,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Counselor, what's the pleasure on the piece?
I apologize. I'm going to lay this on the calendar to the next meeting of public safety, and at that point, we will have the rough draft of the ordinance to present before us, and bring it up at that point for movement out of committee.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is have an ordinance drafted, hold it over to our next committee meeting in public safety. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it, you have done so. Thank you for the presentation too, by the way. Number 4, please.
All right. Item number 4,
Mr.
this is a
Chairman.
resolution up by Council Frank Capone, Bicycle Safety Education Program.
Counselor Capone?
I know that this was, at one time, I think the chief was at our main meeting. I don't know that this was in committee before. If it were, I don't think anyone from the administration was here. I don't know if we have anyone from the administration here tonight.
You want the chief up? Because I had spoke to him before on this, so.
I mean, if the chief is here, because we've, you know.
Chief, could we
we've had
have you
chief.
before us, please? Have a good night. Chief, if you could just give a brief update on this. If you could state your name and title too, please.
Good evening, Stephen Mazie, Chief of Police for the City of Everett.
Thank you. Just an update on the...
Sorry, so what we have been doing is, actually throughout the year, we received some grants through the state to buy bicycle helmets. And then recently we received a bunch of helmets from a law firm that made a large donation to us. So what we've been having happen is officers at headquarters, as well as traffic officers, watching kids on the street who don't have helmets and going out and giving out helmets to kids. We've talked about initial stages of planning a kind of like a bicycle safety day, where we like to integrate some our mountain bike officers with young kids going out on the street and showing them some of the proper ways to ride, et cetera, and again, give out bike helmets. So that's something we'll be doing. It's not like a one-time deal, but the bike helmets will be going out on a routine basis, especially in the warmer months, but it's stuff we'll do year-round.
Thank you. Councilor Capone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Thank you, Chief, for being here, and I appreciate your input on this issue last time around. I don't know that it was formally in committee, so this might be the first time we're talking about this, because I know there's I know that you do things within the department with the helmets, et cetera. I'm trying to reach back to years ago when I rode a bike. But I think at one point in time, the rules of the road where you're supposed to drive in the street with traffic, with the flow of traffic. I don't know if that's changed. I think you were even supposed to get off your bike and cross the intersection when you're going across an intersection with the bike. I don't know if that's changed.
Yeah, you don't see that too much.
Yeah. My concern is, I know that we've spoken about younger riders, but one of the things I'm seeing, and I was looking for the administration's input on this, because one of the things I've seen, I'm sure you've seen it and your offices have seen it, we've got adults riding bikes opposite direction, cutting through red lights, blowing through intersections, driving down the sidewalk at excessive speeds. You have an elderly individual walking a sidewalk, they're not going to be able to get out of the way fast enough, and you're going to have a serious injury. So
Sure.
I was looking towards the administration to see if we can't put some sort of a public awareness project together where we inform people that, you know, there's a right way to operate your bike and a wrong way to operate your bike. Doesn't mean they're going to listen, but at least get it out there and let them know that there are rules to using your bike, and if you're not using your bike the proper way, you're actually creating a public safety issue.
Sure.
And, you know, we'll start with the young kids in school and all that stuff, the programs that have been going on, but I wanted to reach out to the older individuals in the neighborhood and try to get them on board with what we need to do. But I don't even know if that's the case where you're
Well-
supposed to get off the bike and cross.
No,
I'm reaching back, way back, so.
Yeah, I mean, things have changed dramatically. First of all, we didn't have bike lanes. There's bike lanes now dedicated to bicyclists. And, you know, when you say reach out to the adult motoring public on bicycles, most of them are going to be commuters that probably aren't even, they're coming through our city.
Yeah.
Maybe some live in the city, but they're commuting into Boston. I mean, we're in a great spot that you can actually get to parts of Cambridge and downtown Boston on a bicycle in a good amount of time in the good weather. So we need to, we haven't done it yet. You know, we've been obviously making the observations that you're making, that there's an increase in bicycle activity in general. You're not supposed to be on the sidewalks on bikes, especially adults, but, you know, we have to use discretion. When we got a 6-year-old kid on his
Absolutely.
bicycle on a sidewalk in a neighborhood, and a 25-year-old guy who's going at a higher rate of speed is a big difference. But you're supposed to be in the roadway going with the flow of traffic. And but one thing we need to do is adopt the state bicycle regulations as a city. And so I have been having discussions with Sergeant Hannon, our traffic unit, and that's something we're going to introduce to the Traffic Commission. I don't know if he's begun that process, but we can't enforce any bicycle regulations unless we adopt the state regulations.
Okay.
So that's what we need to do, and we're making those, taking those steps rather to go in that direction. Because I think going forward, you're going to see an increase in bicycle usage in through our city on a regular basis. If you go by the bike path, for example, I've been down the bike path, tons of people commuting on the bike path, people using it for recreational use for bicycles. So it's much more prevalent than it used to be.
Okay, great. Where are we at with getting that to the Traffic Commission, accepting the state
I don't know. I'd have to find it out from Sergeant Hannon. We've had discussions. I don't know if he's put on the agenda yet, but it's something that has to go through a process.
Okay, great. Thank you, and I do appreciate you pairing.
No problem.
This is the same issue we had last time. You
Yep.
were here on your own. You can only speak to part of the issue, and we need to get
Sure.
the other part of it. So I do appreciate your efforts and your insight.
You're
I
welcome.
have no other questions, Chief.
Councilman McLaughlin, you have anything? Councilman McLaughlin?
Excuse me, sir. Through you to the chief. Chief, I also just want to applaud you and your department for your efforts on bike safety. I know with so many new residential units coming into our community, we're hoping that more of our residents will be using bicycles as a method of transportation and getting around the community and so forth. And we keep seeing week after week developments coming before the planning board and the Board of Appeals that are getting approved for a large quantity of uses, and they keep getting told that bicycles will be implemented and utilized by their residents. So I want to applaud Councilor Capone for putting this piece forward, and I want to thank you for your due diligence and Sergeant Hannon for working on this. And I know that you guys are taking it serious and have an eye on the ball. So I just want to thank you for your efforts
Thank
on
you.
this issue.
You're welcome.
Excuse me, customary thanks.
Excuse the customary thanks. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
appearing tonight, Chief.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to grant further time and put an invite to get a representative from the administration to our next meeting.
Motion made and seconded to grant further time and have a, who do you want?
Representative from the
A
mayor's office.
representative from the mayor's office. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. You have done so.
Second motion.
Motion made and seconded to take item number 8. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Item number 8, this is a resolution by Leo McKinnon, the Fire Police Civil Service.
Actually, could I have the chiefs, both chiefs up before me and both union representatives before me?
What's going on, Michael? How are you, Counsel? What's going on, Jeffrey?
If you could all just state your names and titles, please.
Hi, Steve Mazie, Police Chief from the City of Everett.
Tony Colley, Chief of Fire Department, Everett.
Craig Hardy, President, Local 143, Everett Firefighters.
Jeff McKay, President, Everett Police Patrolmen's Association.
Gentlemen, thank you for appearing tonight. My question on this is, civil service-wise, we're going to be hiring more individuals, correct, off the civil service list? Is that what we're doing in the next couple of months coming up for both police and fire?
So
Go ahead.
we've been in the process, Counselor, we're at the tail end right now of hiring 10 people. The process, began many months back. We ended up bringing on, as you know, 3 lateral transfers, civil service lateral transfers, who have been working on our streets. They've been on the streets now for a while. We had 5 recruit officers start the academy this past Monday at the Reading Academy. We have 2 more officers that are going to begin. They're not done completely with the vetting process yet, but we're lining them up for future academies as we speak. Academy space is getting tight in terms of they get filled up quick, but basically that'll round out the 10 officers for us in this fiscal year.
So what the goal is per the police department is 10 officers per year?
The goal,
Times 5 years.
plan we had submitted was roughly 10 officers a year for the next 5 years to bring us up to a level that we feel comfortable with when Lower Broadway area and the Wynn development and other developments take place in that opening, which is roughly 3 years from now, and to take into consideration attrition for people leaving the department.
Attrition, you mentioned attrition, so I'll touch on it. Through attrition, how many you think you're going to be leaving on retirement?
Well, there's a number of people that, there's some people that are mandatory retirement, you have to leave at 65. There's some people who will be eligible to retire. That doesn't mean they retire, but
Sure.
the number of people that will be getting eligible in the next 5 years will be a good amount.
Okay. From the fire aspect of that, same question. what are we looking at for our numbers, and what are we doing now with hiring? And
Counselor, right now, we have approximately, we have 10 in the fire academy now that we just completed hiring on through a federal grant. We also,
that was the grant, how many firefighters were on that grant? 7?
8.
8?
Yeah, it
Okay.
was a grant
One
for-
veteran, and then, is that the one?
Yeah, there actually might be, there's 2 veterans.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 2 veterans that were hired out of that group. And we currently have 3 vacancies that we'll be looking at filling. Part of the grant requirement is that we maintain the number of firefighters that we had previous to the grant. So we'll probably start that process the next 60 days or so.
Okay.
The state civil service fire list for entry level is coming out, the new list is coming out December 1st. It's being certified. So anybody we request now will come off of that new list. Any
Now, will that
requisites.
be, they'll be added to the reserve list? Because I know you guys have a reserve list, you guys don't, chief, correct?
Correct, no reserve.
Yeah, we do have a reserve list. We haven't used it in a number of years. I don't anticipate having to use that. I anticipate pulling the number of people we
Right.
need off of that list and putting them right into the ranks.
Okay. Fair enough, that's better, I think.
I agree.
The other question that I would have is that they're all gonna be from Everett, correct?
The way
You do
our
have a
civil service,
residency here.
the way our civil service list is compiled, they are the residences, disabled vets, veterans, and residents all go to the top of the list, along with relatives, sons or daughters of fallen police or firefighters. They go to above those that,
And that's for a period of 7 years they have to live here, correct?
yeah, that's through our city
according to
ordinance,
our
exactly.
ordinance. Okay. Thank you for that. Gentlemen from the union, you have anything to add? Fire or police? What are the numbers that we're talking about, can you conceivably see that those are satisfactory numbers?
In regards to us, I believe we've had discussions, the chief and members of the union. Depending on the amount of people that retire, the numbers tend to fluctuate. As the chief said, for some people it's optional, we'll have the time and or age. If the city stays consistent with the policy of hiring, we should get ahead, but if we drag our feet and let things go, we probably won't catch up to the numbers that we want. We'll always be behind playing catch-up. I believe if the city's willing to make the commitment, stick with it, do what has to be done, spend the money and or appropriate funds as needed, we'll be fine. Once we get to the number that we settle at and prepare for it. But once again, there are various factors that come in.
Such as retirement and various...
Retirement, yeah, people decide to leave the job, things like that, funding. The chief can probably elaborate a lot more on that. But
Anything from the fire union?
I think Chief Carley covered it, and he's prepared for the future, especially with the wind development. Obviously, we are going to have to grow as a department and add some resources and all that, but I know we've been in talks with him regularly, so we're going to try to stay ahead of it and be ready for it.
Thank you for that. Councilman McLaughlin?
Mr. Chairman, I got to tell you, it's impressive to have all 4 of these gentlemen before us, so you did a good job tonight, Mr. Chairman. Chiefs, through you guys, I have a little, Chief Mazie, you said that we have 10 new officers coming on this fiscal year, including the 3 that we've already put on that were the laterals over the course of the summer, is that correct?
Correct.
So the course of the rest of the year, we'll have 10 new. How many will retire? And I'm sure you don't have a crystal ball. I'm sure you can't tell this number exact, but roughly how many will retire this fiscal year? If you had to take a guesstimate, which I'm not holding your feet to the fire on anything. But.
Yeah, considering I don't have a crystal ball, I think a total from July 1 of 16 through next June of 17, I'll say the total will probably be 3.
3.
With 1 who's already retired.
1 is already retired.
So probably 2 more.
So we'll really put on 7 new members of the police department in the course of the fiscal year. Would that be right? Because we're going to take 3 off, we're going to add 10. So you're really going to be backfilling those 3 and then adding 4, and then adding 4 additional. So you'll be adding 7 new members to our force.
Yeah, when the process gets done, I mean, you know, a new recruit, by the time you process them, it takes months to process. You know, you're doing interviews and selections and backgrounds and medicals and psychologicals, pre-academy testing, academy attendance. You have to complete the academy. You have to complete a field training officer program. That whole process can take a year.
Right.
And then retirement, well, it depends on when people retire. I mean,
Sure.
what the net gain is, it's gonna be somewhere in that ballpark, but I can't tell you exactly. It could be 7, it could be 8.
But you don't think it's gonna be 3? It's gonna be somewhere.
Well, it's more than, we already have 3.
It's somewhere greater than 6.
We already have 3 that are on the streets already.
Beyond those 3.
Yeah,
So additional as of, say, today, going forward.
So the Reading
in
Academy
fiscal year.
officers just started. It's a week, they were a week into it. We're not gonna see them till spring, April, around there.
Okay, but you believe before June 30th of this coming year, you'll see
Oh, is it-
5 to 7 new members?
That's a net gain, yes. It'll definitely be a net gain throughout the fiscal year. Yep.
Okay, and again, it's just a concern to know that our numbers are increasing because you guys are losing members each year. And if we're not backfilling, it's sort of always gonna play catch up. And we need to get to a point of not catching up, but adding, because we have a growing community that is bursting at so quickly, and everything is happening so fast in our community that we can't lose members that we're not backfilling and then trying to play catch up consistently. Unfortunately, we all know tragedies that happen across the world and across the country, and you know, you guys are our first line of defense, and we need to support you in these chambers and give you the funding. As Mr. McCabe said, funding is key to you guys, and we need to make sure that the council is fighting hard to get you guys the funding that is needed to make sure that you guys have what you need on the streets to keep our city safe and moving forward, because the rest of the city is moving forward. So that was my only question on that. My other concern that I have, to be very truthful, is the residency, right? We have an ordinance in place that says you're supposed to live here for 7 years. I think in both departments, at least in the police department, I know firsthand, and we both know firsthand, officers that aren't living in the community, that should be living in the community, that are openly breaking residency requirements. How are we handling trying to identify them? And can you talk at all on the process of where we go from there and what we do with them?
Counselor, for your information, the Human Resources Director was supposed to be here tonight. He was out on, I think it was family business. That's why he couldn't attend tonight.
Okay.
But he would have those answers, and that would probably be the best route to go. I'm going to re-invite him back to another meeting in, I believe, October. So he'll be coming here to answer that. So.
Okay, I just didn't know if the chief has had
Oh, yeah.
any conversations
I mean, you
with
can
him,
get
if he
their
can.
opinion as well.
If he can touch on it, but if not, chief, I'm not putting you on the
I
spot. It's-
really can't say too much about it, because
Fine.
there's only been
No.
preliminary discussion.
No problem whatsoever. We'll talk to the human resource about it, but it is something that I'm going to put into motion with Councilor McKinnon, and if we have to go into an executive session to talk about it, but it's something I'm very concerned about and that I take very serious, that we put an ordinance on the books and that we're enforcing it across every department that should be enforced across the city. And it's something that I'm very concerned by. That I appreciate your time tonight.
Councilman Capone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very briefly, to Chief Colley, I don't know if this was asked, and if it is, I apologize. I didn't hear anything about attrition, where we're at with regards to the department.
So I'm in a similar situation as Chief Mazie in that case. We have a lot of people that can walk out the door any day. Probably 10 to 15 people could leave with their pensions. We don't have that many that are close to the mandatory retirement age of 65. So there's a swing between 55 and 65 where people have their time and their age, but they're not just ready to go. I have one scheduled that does reach his mandatory retirement at the end of January, so I know for a fact he'll be gone. You always hear the scuttle that some people are ready to go, and, conservatively, probably within this fiscal year, I guess, I would say 3.
Okay.
With that one being.
So one definite and then.
One definite, 2 to 3 more.
Retirement is one of those things that changes every 15 minutes.
Exactly, and I've
So-
seen a lot of people talk about it for a lot of years and stay to their time. It's a good place to be.
Yeah. Great. I have no other questions. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being
All
here.
right, thank you. Is that, that's it? Okay. I want to thank you for appearing tonight and giving the answers that you gave. Also, I think, Chief, you have another piece that's here, so you may want to just stay.
Sure.
We'll take that out.
Yep.
Also, from the union standpoint, you may want to stay as well. Thank you. Excuse the customary thanks to the fire department. Thank you for appearing. I'm
You
gonna,
guys.
I'm gonna refer this
Good night.
to our meeting in October and have the Human Resources Director come down and actually give us some information on we have the ordinance that's already in play. I just want to know what they're doing to actually make sure that that's being enforced. So, Councilman McLaughlin.
On the motion, I would like to ask that the fire department comes back in October and ask the mayor to appear, because I take this serious, and it's a complete slap in the face when you see certain instances that as blatantly as possible could be laid out, that they're not following the ordinances. I would like to have the mayor and the fire department back, because I'm offended by.
We'll invite
some of this.
all parties out. We're here tonight, plus the Human Resources Director
And the mayor.
and the mayor.
Yep, thank you.
All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. You have done so. Please take number 7, ready, so we can get the chief out.
All right, item number 7. This is a resolution offered by Council Frank Capone, Leo McKinnon, and Peter Napolitano. This is regarding the auxiliary police department.
Could we have the chief from the auxiliary and also Councilor Napolitano before us? Just state your titles and names, gentlemen, for the record.
My name is Leonard Jordan, I'm chief of the Riddick Auxiliary.
Peter Napolitano, Councilman at Large.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a couple of questions here on I know that we swore in a number of officers, auxiliary officers. How many was there, Chief, do you know? Or Chief Jordan, do you know?
About 15.
So there was 15?
Yeah. About 15 or so, yeah.
Okay. And let me see. Have you guys met at this time with the
Well-
chief? Have you two?
Right now, we're kind of on the standstill because the mayor is supposed to be letting us know what we're going to be doing, what we're supposed to be doing. And I sent the chief of staff of the mayor a new list of some more guys to get on so we could actually do the job that you guys wanted us to do, the elderly centers and stuff, because we were kind of shy on the guys enough to do it. So we wanted to get a few more guys on so, we could, guys wouldn't be repeating doing it over and over again. A guy would do it for 1 week and then give a couple breaks and then, So we wanted to get a little rotation going. Because with the amount of guys, we can't do it with the small amount of guys that we had.
Chief Mazie, weren't you looking for something as well with the auxiliary? I thought you wanted to train new recruits and stuff like that, or actually people that may be thinking about coming on to the force.
Well, we were trying to change the way business was done, and, the charter had changed as well. There was some resistance by auxiliary members for some of the changes that we were speaking of, and that, basically created a bottleneck. In the meantime, we have, we're open 24 hours a day. We have other operations and
Sure.
policing matters we have to address on a daily basis. But that originally was some of the problems.
All right, so is there going to be a meeting in the near future with you two guys so that you can possibly work this out, or?
Well, at some point, we'll discuss, what the needs are of the auxiliary and what involvement they would have.
Now, would they also be swearing in additional people? And would you actually be swearing in additional people to the auxiliary, or how is that going to work?
Well, yeah, I don't swear them in. I'm not the appointing authority on the
We do.
auxiliaries, but we.
Would you have names that we would swear in?
Well, the mayor, I would, the mayor he would consult with me on what the needs are.
Sure.
And I would send him, my recommendation to him, and then he would make a decision based on, what he thinks is in the best interest of the auxiliary police.
All right, that's fair enough. Just wanted that answer because I was kind of wondering how that was gonna work out, because there was two different scenarios. They were looking to get their people on, and I think you were looking to do something with new recruits or something to that effect, or people that were interested in the force or whatever.
Well, it comes down to what is the proper utilization
Yeah.
of the members of the department.
Absolutely. I have one question to the union. Do you have any information or that you want to share with us on this? Or-
No, what I was going to say is, I believe we had discussed, just preliminary, is the cadet type program. I think that's what we.
Cadet program?
Over the summer, yeah. I mean, Chief and I had just mentioned it, but I believe that was brought up, yeah.
Sure.
Nothing more than just brief. That might be what you were
Yeah,
referring to?
that's what I was
Okay.
trying to bring out, but I'm glad that you're here and you brought that out for me. The cadet program. If we can, I mean, would you feel comfortable with that, like as a cadet program, Chief? Utilization of it?
I don't think that would fit I don't know if that's the right terminology. I mean, the auxiliary police is a whole separate issue
Sure.
from a cadet program.
It's a different animal?
Yes.
All right. You have anything else? Mr. McKay?
No, as I've said in the past, we're more than willing to sit down with the chief when the meeting does come, and
Sure.
with all parties involved and the mayor,
Yeah.
see as to what direction that he envisions and what direction we foresee them.
Councilman McLaughlin?
So, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the chief of the auxiliary, Mr. Jordan, you guys will have no involvement, say, this Saturday and homecoming day in doing any task?
Well, we don't know. We have to get that from the mayor's office would tell the chief, and the chief would call us, like prior years,
Yeah.
you know, and then I'd call up the guys.
Sure.
See how many guys I can get. And some of the other years would probably call other auxiliary departments, and they would join in. That would be an approval of the chief, if they wanted to, or if not, we'd just do it ourselves. And basically, we'd be just directing the traffic like we've been doing for years and years and years and years.
Chief Mazie, can we get a commitment out of you tonight that you'll work this week with us to see if we can get some of the auxiliary members to participate in homecoming this coming Saturday? And I really think it's important, only because you guys are over inundated right now with details. There's so much work going on across our city. There's so many projects going on. You guys are really working around the clock on details and beyond your regular shifts. I see it every day and every night when you're out driving around the city of Everett, whether it's on Ferry Street or it's on Lower Broadway, the Wynn Casino site, and numerous other places across the city. I think that these gentlemen could fill in some of the gaps or some of the blanks that your manpower is just stretched at this point. You guys are doing all you can to make the street safe, but I think having some of these gentlemen participate in something like homecoming or other community type events like the Jared's run yesterday morning or future other events that are going to come up, it is helpful to take a little bit of the pressure or stress off of your manpower that is already stretched pretty thin. If you would agree with that, there is a lot going on in our community right now, more so than years past. So would you be willing to work with us this week to see that that can happen for Saturday?
Counselor, you're confusing, I think, a couple of issues. The auxiliaries, the officers that are working on details, that's off-duty time.
Yep.
For those officers, or,
Correct.
days off, outside of their shift, their normal shift operations. The auxiliary department cannot work that work. They're
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, they're restricted from that work belongs to the union members. The other thing is, though, you have to be a fully trained, certified law enforcement officer to work those positions anyways. Some of the events, we have used them in the past in some events. Last year, we did not use them for homecoming. We've been having discussions about planning for homecoming for the last few weeks. We had a brief meeting discussion this morning on it. In the next day or two, we're going to start finalizing plans that'll be executed for this Saturday. I don't know what those final plans are going to be yet, but at the end of the day, whatever plan we put out there is going to be in the best interest of public safety, to ensure that we have proper amount of people and the right people in the right places to get the job done.
And again, I was not trying to confuse the issue. I completely understand that police details are in the hands of our police department. The fact is an officer that worked on Friday night going to be able to come in, do the homecoming on Saturday, maybe have to go to police detail on Saturday night because we're doing road work somewhere amongst the city on Saturday night. Construction on our streets is in the hands of our police department, absolutely. But these gentlemen can ease up some of that other secondary type events so that a police officer doesn't not be able to fill a police detail because they're going to come to homecoming. There's only so many events that can go on in the city where you have manpower, and that's the truth, is that there's a lot going on in our city. There is definitely a need that these gentlemen can fill in a parade type of an event where they can kind of direct traffic or do other tasks, where our police department is specialized in doing road work overnight and making sure that our city is safe and all sorts of details. And we have an abundance of details right now, whether it's here in the city or it's outside the city. Our officers are going outside the city every day working details across the region. So it's a valid point that the auxiliary police can definitely fill in some of these gaps. And I would like to see, as we move forward the next day or two with the final plans of homecoming, that Chief Jordan is consulted and talked with, and that they're utilized on Saturday. Maybe it doesn't go well. Maybe it's not what we think, and we take it from there. But it's an opportunity on Saturday to get some of these men and women out on these streets to be able to participate in a community event. They want to volunteer their time. And I don't think that last year we didn't choose them because they weren't organized, from what I understand. There was not an organized group last year. I wasn't on the city council, but I believe that's what the case was. This year they've become organized, to become sworn in. They've been sworn in by the city council, city clerk, excuse me. I think it's a different year than it was last year. That's my only thought on it. So I'm not sure if you are committed to helping us try to do that, Chief, but I would like to see that if you are.
Well, Council, as usual, I'm committed to putting the best public safety resources on the street to get the job done. Again, they're limited. The auxiliary police department, I just want to make sure you're not confused in their role. They're very limited in what they can do. They're limited by the patrolman union contract to certain activities and events. And if we feel comfortable that their personnel are capable of performing certain tasks for homecoming or any other event, we will deploy them. If we don't feel comfortable and confident, we won't deploy them, but we're considering them.
Well, I would surely hope that we feel confident that we have sworn in individuals into the auxiliary police, that we have confidence that they are able to do some sort of a task, right? I mean, hopefully we didn't just take a bunch of individuals off of the street and make them auxiliary police in our city. Hopefully they have had some previous experience or some previous record of accomplishment in their field. And so you have to have some faith in the fact that they can do some sort of a task at hand, because I don't think that the mayor put before the city council a list of people he found, just roaming around the streets of the city. It could be, and it could be mistakenly wrong.
The case, no.
But the case is that I think that the individuals are capable of doing some sort of task, and I know there's a clear separation between what a police officer can do on a detail and what auxiliary police can do on a community event like homecoming and other community events that we have throughout the year. So that's my only thought. Hopefully, I'll be honest, I'm going to call the mayor tonight, and I'm going to talk to the mayor and see if we can get the mayor to commit to doing this as well, and I hope that you will keep an open mind as the next couple of days unfold as well. Thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Mr. McCabe?
I would just caution you to Councilor, just to keep in mind, as the chief said, there are contractual issues that the city has with the union. I agree there are some functions. Many of them are spelled out in the contract, but this is a union city. It's a union job, and we've worked within those realms for probably 80 years, however long the auxiliary police has been around. So I think the choice of words you use, you have to be careful when you start comparing details and the amount of hours that are worked. That they're relevant. They have a function. We know their function. They know their function. Obviously, that always falls back onto the chief and to the mayor. But there's also issues with the contract that have been long-standing with us, with the union. So I wouldn't essentially put the horse before the cart. Let's let them have a meeting. Let the powers that be come out with something, and then we'll all come out with something that works, probably agreeable to all parties involved, but as the chief said, let's not confuse too many things all at once. And
I couldn't agree more with you, with Officer
I'll be
McKee.
on the
but
wrath, I would be on the wrath of my guys.
Through
I
the
think-
chair, gentlemen, through the chair. Councilman Capone has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I just want to be very clear that the intent of this body is not to take any work away from the membership. So I want you to be rest assured that that's not the intent at all, and realize that we do have contractual obligations, et cetera. The role of the auxiliary is extremely limited, and the hope is that we've got folks who are willing to volunteer their time, and we would like to see them utilized in such a capacity within the constraints of what their function is in order to actually supplement the efforts of the police department and free the membership up to do that more specialized work that they're trained to do. So I heard from you that it looks like it's the administration that needs to put some input. Chief, is that the way it works? It's basically you as the chief of police and the mayor as the chief executive officer of our city coming together to figure out what the use should be of the auxiliary, or does it start from the administration? How does that all work?
I know what the use of them is, but what I'm saying is they're restricted by the regular patrolman's contract in the type of events that they can do.
Right.
This idea, I mean, terms get confused, I don't want people to get confused. Details are
Yeah.
a separate,
Yeah,
it's
it's
secondary.
off limits,
It's basically
absolutely.
like secondary work
That's
that officers get
contractual
compensated for.
Sure.
They can't work those in our
Yeah.
city under the existing.
We're pretty much
rules
talking about,
in language,
it's limited
et
to
cetera.
like road races,
It's like youth
homecoming,
activities, it's.
Fourth of July
parades,
festivities,
certain
that kind of stuff.
City functions and events.
Yeah.
Now, just to step back here, if you remember a while back, I've been trying to get them to conform to some changes where they'd be utilized more. If we go back, I was trying to utilize them more, not less, but, because of the resistance and the roadblocks, I mean, again, we have, public safety operations going on 24 hours a day.
Absolutely.
And if they want to resist the change, I can't put them out in the streets.
Right.
I mean, that's really the bottom line. If they were open-minded to the change, we'd be utilizing them more, and we wouldn't be here talking about it right now.
Okay.
But
So from your point of view, is it just the two of you that need to hash it out? Does the administration need to be involved in this process?
Well,
Where we
no, I mean,
at?
it's very simple. I mean, we're in the middle of planning for homecoming. We have to sit down, and we'll be doing that in the next, 48 hours, going down and off. What do we need for personnel? What do we need to accomplish for the homecoming parade, the football game, et cetera? And look at, okay, what are we gonna use for our personnel? Most likely, it will involve resources from the auxiliary police. I just can't tell you exactly how many and
Sure.
what exactly yet, because that's all part of planning right now.
Sure, and that's the immediate events coming up.
Correct.
As far as future use, do you think it's as simple as the two, or do we need the administration? Where are we at with that process in terms of
No, I mean,
how to use them down the road and all that?
The mayor entrusts me to
Okay.
carry this out. I mean,
Okay, so it's really your
it's-
call with how to utilize resources available to you that's in the best interest of public safety.
Correct. We have him. He's
Okay.
appointed him. We have him as a resource. It's a
Okay.
matter of making sure we can utilize him in a way that we all feel comfortable with.
Okay, and whatever those, you were looking, have them confirm certain changes in order to utilize them more, that's something that would be ongoing discussion, I guess, between the parties.
Yeah, well, that's something that Chief Jordan needs to get his folks on board with.
Okay.
If we can't get compliance, that'd be the equivalent of what we're trying to execute some strategy in the streets
Sure, it's
with my
understandable.
full-time officers, and they say, well, Chief, we're not gonna do
No,
it that
it's-
way.
it's understandable.
That would be a problem.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely understandable, Chief. And if the intent of the auxiliary is to be of service to the community, if we could kind of work something out and actually utilize them in a greater capacity than they've been used, then that's fantastic. So to the extent that we can help, that's great. I know that it's not our realm, so whatever you folks need to do on your end, if you can make that happen, that'd be great. But I want to make sure that everybody in this chamber and everyone watching is very clear that the department, the union members, they have their function, their role, and nobody is trying to overstep those bounds. That, you know, this is a resource that's available. We're fortunate that we have a community where people are making themselves available, and then you utilize them as best you see fit. So, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Councilman McLaughlin, then Councilman Napolitano.
I'm not going to belabor it. I'm not going to belabor this issue, but I don't want the chief or Officer McCabe to walk out of here tonight thinking that I am trying to put a roadblock up on any of our police officers or the details. I think Officer McCabe knows that I support the men and women of the police department fully, and I think Chief Mazie does as well. My only thought is, if we have a detail that needs to go down to Wynn on Saturday, and we can have an auxiliary officer fill in at the homecoming, and we can also fill the Wynn detail on Saturday, or whatever the case might be, just for an example. There is only so many resource officers that you guys have that can do specialized work, and that's the only way. That's the only place I was going with that. I wholeheartedly support the police department, and I definitely don't want that to be turned tonight that I'm trying to cut you guys out of details, Officer McKee. And I hope that that wasn't the case. And the only reason I brought that up was because of that, Chief Mazie.
No,
you
we know that.
Our details that we have going on in the city every day.
We prioritize, just so you know, we prioritize, you know, you stated that, you know, officer leaving the city every day to work details. That's not true right now. In the past, we do have MOUs with a number of agencies. They do leave the city to go out in the county, and sometimes, you know, in Suffolk County as well, on mutual aid agreements. But, you know, as times change, like right now, there's a lot of development going on in the city of Everett. Everett officers are working the development that's going on in the city of Everett. We can't help other agencies on a secondary basis with those type of projects at issue. So our guys are basically home taking care of work here. And for example, for homecoming, other operations and people are put on notice to cease any work, for example, during homecoming on Saturday, we won't be allowing people to have permits to go open the street up because we have an event going on. So we have a plan that we're working on for the homecoming itself. It's not, you know, homecoming has been the same kind of format, so we know what it exists of, and we just need to figure out how many resources we need and to execute the job. And we know Chief Jordan's number. We'll give him appropriate notice and try to get some bodies in.
Okay. So maybe I was misunderstanding, but from the city of Cambridge, I was talking with past weekend. They told me that numerous amount of our members are in their community every day doing details. So if I misunderstood that, I apologize. But I understood that from the commissioner of the Cambridge Police and some of their deputies that we had many details filled a day in Cambridge. So I apologize.
We work with them regularly in a system, but I'm saying lately we're not able to assist them that much because of our own development.
Councilman Napolitano.
Thank you. I just want to share my perspective on this. I've been an auxiliary police officer in 1986. When I got honorably discharged from the Navy, I spent my last enlistment as a military police officer. And though I wasn't interested in pursuing a career in law enforcement, I was interested in keeping my skills sharp and keeping my education in law enforcement up to be able to contribute back to the community. Now, the thing is, I've heard a few things tonight here that I've heard repeatedly. Chief, I understand your concerns about whether the members of the auxiliary are capable of, you know, of being able to, you know, perform the duties that you require them. But my question is, what training are they providing, and how is that training being gauged? When I was an auxiliary police officer, we had to be certified through several things before we could go out and fill and do any type of job. And I know there's a fine line between a detail and an auxiliary job. But the thing is, we need to be certified in CPR. We need to be certified with our weapons. We need to be certified with hand-to-hand. There were several things that we were had to be certified before we were allowed to go on the street and represent the auxiliary police. Even the military has a reserve component. And if these people are not allowed to grow and fill that, especially in this day and age, there's obviously, yes, there's concerns. We want people in there that are not going to make mistakes and take a situation and potentially blow it up into something more. But I'm concerned that I'm hearing, and all I've been hearing the past couple of years is concerns about what they're not able to do. But I don't hear anything about what can bring up, elevate the professionalism for them to feel more confident that they're able to do that job. You know, in this day and age, and when I went in the auxiliary, I come out in the post-Vietnam era, but most of the members I served with in the auxiliary were Vietnam veterans, they were Korean War veterans, they're prior military who brought that level of professional expertise with them to the table. With the all-volunteer of the late 70s, 80s, and early 90s, you didn't have that same level of people. Now with post 9/11, you have an influx of former military back in the community who bring skills and knowledge to the table. I'm concerned that with the current format, unless they're interested in having a full-time job in law enforcement, there isn't any venue for them to be able to utilize or contribute to that component in the community. And we're missing out on something here. These gentlemen, we don't expect them to fill details. But on the other hand, when you have officers who are working details, who then after working details come on and do their full-time job, I mean, we're all human beings. There is a diminishment of awareness, of physicality, and these are things that can eventually hurt us in the long term. The last thing we want to see is an officer make a lapse in judgment because of fatigue. If these gentlemen are now we had 45 members when I was on the auxiliary police, and we filled baseball games, we filled there wasn't homecoming there, but 4th of July. These things give your guys breathing space so they can go to the job refreshed, so they can take a detail without feeling fatigued. When they're working details, working their regular shifts, and having to come in and work 4th of July or homecoming, at what point do you physically or mentally break where you're not working at peak performance? Wouldn't you agree that's when accidents happen?
Yeah, that's a whole separate issue. That has
Yeah,
nothing to do.
Counselor, I think what.
But it isn't.
Counselor, what I think that is, it's all contractual language that they already aired out contractually.
The contract hasn't changed in the regard of what the auxiliary can do or couldn't do
Auxiliary
since
can't do
1986.
detail. Auxiliary cannot do details.
And I'm not saying they're doing details. What I'm saying is that they're suited for homecoming, they're suited for 4th of July, and if they're not utilized in those positions, then regular officers are utilized in their position, and which creates the fatigue and the diminishment I'm talking about. Because you can't work details and work your full-time job and work these homecoming things that are not restricted by the union contract and expect to be able to be out there using sound judgment 100%. That's my point. That's my only point here. I would like to see, if all possible, I'd like to at least consider, elevating the training or the certification for the auxiliaries enough so you have a reasonable reserve component, even if it's nothing more than to watch a Pop Warner game or to, direct traffic during homecoming. I definitely understand the need. I've worked with people who were also, I had questions about their professionalism. The last thing I want is somebody out there who's going to make my job harder or put me in danger or put the public in danger. But we need to elevate and make sure that these people are certified on both, to your satisfaction, to their satisfaction, so they can do the job safely. Because that's ultimately all we're after, is that whatever job they're doing, they're showing sound judgment and they're doing the job safely and protecting the public.
So, Counsel, again, I was trying to elevate them. Again, when you can't get basic things done, like a uniform issue, that's problematic to me. Those are ground balls. And if Chief Jordan and his staff can't get on board with basics like that, how do you expect me to put them on the street? The other things, the charter reform, they can't carry firearms anymore. So that's a whole separate issue in and of itself. So regardless of what we do, they don't carry firearms, and they're prohibited from carrying firearms. So the type of training is, from the old days, and you are exactly right, there were a lot of veterans. There were guys in World War II and Korea and Vietnam. We don't see those people anymore. There's not many of them, and the numbers have shrunk dramatically. So in times change. I mean, it is what it is. But we were trying to get there, but the roadblocks weren't put up on my end. I'm trying to change with the times. I was trying to convey that to them and utilize them, I think, in a way that's good for the community and safe for them and everyone else.
I understand about the firearms, and I understand that. Through the chair, do they carry baton of some form?
At the end of the day, they used to. To me, they shouldn't be carrying a baton either, no. That's what I'm trying to tell you in terms, I'm trying to change them to utilize them in a way, unfortunately, some of the members don't want to go with that change, which presents problems.
Through the chair, I have a question. Chief Jordan, what training have your members been through?
About 80% of my members. Myself, I went through an academy that Chief Mazie sent me to a few years back. It was
Is
a
it a
reserve
state academy?
reserve intimate academy in Waltham.
Okay.
There's a few of my other officers that went through the same academy, type academy. It was up in Reading, I think it was. And then recently, well, not recently, probably about 5 years ago, some of them went through an academy in Randolph, a reserve academy over there. There's only about one or two that haven't been on recently, that haven't been to academy. One went through an academy in Boston. It's like a Boston Special Police Academy.
What do you learn at this academy?
Police procedures, everything but physical, like running and jumping and climbing fences, but a lot of, how you go into a building, and, look for a suspect with your
OC,
firearms and stuff
pepper
like
spray.
OC, pepper spray, handcuff,
Baton.
certificates, and CPR, and first responder.
Okay.
But
Has any of your
Like-
individuals lapsed on that, or?
well, yes, all our certificates are expired now within probably a year or so, or more. Yeah, but we used to do them time and time again. Now there was a short time where Chief Mazie didn't want us to carry guns, and we complied with that. But then on certain ones, we'd call him for and say, oh, like it would be like a Halloween night. Oh, well, you can wear them that night, but I don't want you wearing them on this day, and we wouldn't. And then certain be a park thing with a bunch of kids, we wouldn't carry it that day. But then like on Halloween night, we carried them, and then we didn't, and then we didn't. But then there was a time where they wanted us to change to type of uniforms that we thought were like, might as well be in Barnum and Bailey Circus. I mean, we can't, when you're blocking off a street and they see you, they don't even want to stop for crossing guards, never mind cross for anybody that doesn't look like official. And we kind of wanted to keep our official looking police uniforms, because that's the way we've done details like throughout the state years and before, and like they didn't even want to stop for regular police officers, never mind stock for somebody that's just dressed like a shirt like this and a pair of pants. That's why you don't see too many flagmen around, even though the state said they allowed flagmen. But we've been doing all the parades for years and years and years now, and we actually only do mainly side streets. There's about 50 or 60 streets through the parade route that we take care of. And we've taken care of the same streets over and over again. We get the same list. It's the same thing. Direct the people down this street, direct them down that street. Parade leapfrog all the way up Broadway, and follow the parade all the way through. And basically, that's what. And then, if we have a hard time, we radio on an officer, which we have a lot, and we radio on an officer, and their officers that are working the parade route, they're in cars, motorcycles, and they can fly over and stop the people from doing what we don't want them to do. And it happens a long time, We had one a couple of years back. They went right through the barriers, and I had to call one of the officers, and he came down and grabbed the guy. And basically, that's what we do, is just direct the traffic down Woodlawn Street,
You
down.
report to the OIC?
Yep, we go right up to the meetings early in the morning, go in the room, check in with all the other officers. They give us a list. You do this street, this street, this street. A couple of guys on Broadway and Ferry. A couple of guys down on Broadway, and going down Chelsea Street, and we've been doing the same thing. A couple of guys near the stadium, a couple of guys on Ferry Street going on Chelsea Street the other way, and so people don't come down, and there's barrier streets.
All right. So, fair enough to say that
It's.
you have done the
I'll
parade
show you how
routes
we do it. We
before.
go like this.
You've done this before. You've
Yeah,
done the
yeah,
parade
about
routes
20 years or so, maybe.
All right. So it's just a matter of you. and the
We
chief.
don't take, we have a few guys that don't know how to direct traffic. We usually take the guys that would know what they're doing with direct traffic, that's been doing this for years. And we've done it in numerous other cities before, too.
So this is just a matter between you and the chief? to
Yeah,
sit
just
down and have
the
a
phone
meeting?
call away, and
Okay.
we're there.
All right. Fair enough. Councilors, anything else? Anything else? Someone to,
Mr. Chairman, through you, and I don't know if we're allowed to do this or not, but can we be notified by, say, Thursday, how many members of the auxiliary police are going to be used in the homecoming on Saturday? Either by email or by written letter, or however they want to notify us. I'd like to just know that we're using some of them in the process that we're using. And Chief, I know that I can
Chief,
call
can you
you. and
respond
we
to
can-
that?
Yeah, well, exactly, I'm a phone call away.
Exactly, and I know that, but
You know, you just heard Chief Jordan explain to you what a lot of my concerns and issues and problems are. I'm trying to get them the training that they really need, that for the tasks that we want them to perform. For example, directing traffic. I know it sounds simple, but there's people that have had no formal training in that area. That's a huge issue with me. And the other thing is, we don't put people on the street. You can't even go out there, OSHA, it's against, it's a violation without a high-vis Class 3 vest on. We issue high-vis Class 3 vests. We have them. That's what we're trying, but we get caught up in all this other stuff, batons and spray and handcuffing, which is the stuff we don't want them caught up in.
All you need for this is directing the traffic, maybe?
Correct.
Okay,
Traffic is an issue, community relations, and then some of the other issues, presenting uniform-wise, we wanted to present a couple options. We call it a soft uniform. We use soft uniforms sometimes as well, and it depends on what you're doing, so.
If you're
some
doing
of it's-
outreach to the public, you use a soft uniform.
Correct, but, you know, what he's talking about, like a polo-style shirt, is just one idea of a soft uniform, but there's others, a button-down shirt, depending on time of year, what the event is, and so on. So these are things that I was trying to implement, but people got caught up in other issues.
Fair enough. Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To both chiefs, well, we all have the same goal in mind. We want the safety for the community. I understand your concerns, and I understand that your folks want to serve to your fullest ability. So I think we're very lucky that we have the interest. So what I would ask, and I'll make this in the form of recommendation, Mr. Chairman, we refer this to both chiefs. We ask them to work together as best they can to come to some sort of resolution where we can utilize some voluntary resources to help aid your men and women to free them up to do the more specialized stuff. So to the extent that we can do that, let's try to do that because it's in everyone's best interest. So we do appreciate the willingness of your membership, and if we could just do the best we can to work together, be reasonable. There are concerns that the chief has as the lead public safety officer in our community. If it's a matter of training, needs to be done, it's a budgetary issue, please bring it to our attention. We'd be more than happy to do what we can on our end, because at the end of the day, if we can get them properly trained so that they can aid you and your department, so that in total, we're helping the community, absolutely. So anything that we can do, please let us know, but I'm going to make a recommendation that, excuse customary thanks, and refer this matter to both chiefs and see what we can do to try to make it work for the community.
Sure. Motion made and seconded to excuse the customary thanks. Thank you for appearing tonight, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Refer this to both individual department chiefs, and do you want a response back? Yeah, okay. So just that they work together. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you for appearing tonight. Could we take 6 and 7? Yeah, 6, 7, 6, 5, and 6. Motion made and seconded to take items number 5 and 6 collectively. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
All right, item number 5. This is a resolution up by Councilor McKinnon to deal with the rat problem on McKinley Street. Item number 6 is a resolution up by Councilors Napolitano and Capone regarding complaints of rodents around Florence Street Park.
If we could please have Mr. Nuzzo before us.
Could we have Mr. Nuzzo before us?
Good evening.
Mr. Nuzzo, I am so sorry that you're the last piece on the agenda, and
was just like
you've been
old days.
extremely patient, so do appreciate your patience.
Councilman
what-
Capone.
What do we have on this, Chair?
Actually, I'll come out. We had put 2 ordinances together, and
Right.
they were reported out. They were ordained. So I believe you have one of them in your hand now that I think I gave you, but you should have received them both to actually cure a majority of the rat problem that's in the city with, as far as new playground, earth being moved, any type of dwelling, any type of garbage that should have been, it should give you some teeth, as well as the other ordinance was with dumpsters on high-rises. Any business that has a dumpster in the area, they have to bait. So those are the things that we were looking at doing with these right here. These came out of, I think, North Carolina. We took some from North Carolina, some pieces from there, some pieces from Boston that you produced. And I think the city clerk and the assistant city clerk, they took an overview of it, and it came out with a pretty good, pretty good
absolutely.
product. So that's what we've done from the council, so that we gave you 2 ordinances that you can actually utilize now. And hopefully we can cure it and give you some teeth to go out there and do that.
I was surprised when some of these issues came up that we didn't have anything like this on the books, and this is a great tool that I'm sure not just ISD Department, Board of Health will all put it to good use and help control the problem.
Sure.
So, I congratulate you on putting it together. It's going to be something it'll help. With all the development going on in the city, the timing of this is perfect.
We're
So,
going to need it.
Yes, absolutely.
Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Nuzzo. And like most things in life, everything's a work in progress.
Right.
So as you go through it, if you find gaps or holes or ways we can tighten it up in any way, by all means, feel free to let us know. And whatever we can do to make your job easier for the benefit of the community, that's what we want to try to do. So,
We
thank you. And again,
appreciate
I appreciate your patience this evening.
No
It's a
problem
long
at all.
night.
It was
Thank you, Mr.
interesting
Chairman.
stuff.
Council, you have anything? Napolitano?
No, actually, I'm just here regarding, if there was any additional information on Florence Street Park. As the members are aware, the last meeting, we had roughly about 24 neighbors from Florence Street, surrounding the Florence Street Park area, and Luke Road, who came up regarding the rodent issues. We didn't have a quorum, so we were not able to have a formal meeting, but
I have an item that I can read.
please, that would be great. I'm sure many of them are at home watching this meeting tonight.
Due to a previous, let's see here, let me see. Number 1, rodent control measures. Since the last meeting, we have engaged in the services of an exterminating company, Easton Extermination, to assist with mitigation, the issue of rodent in the area. There will be an initial baiting with roticide and cleanout, follow-up baiting for 3 weeks, and follow-up monthly maintenance for a period of 6 months. ISD has also been assisting with the outreach effort to educate residents, restaurants, businesses nearby and about the area, the importance of rodent control. The outreach has been very successful. Have you been coming out with like a
flyer
pamphlet?
we were using, distributing in the area, just alerting people the tips of, what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. And that goes a long way. People don't realize some of the stuff that's in there is really helpful.
Sure. The more education on this, the better, I think, too. So, number 2 on this was the several property owners stated that they have incurred costs for rodent extermination services. If the property owners wish to file a claim, they may start that process by filing a claim with the city clerk. So they're directing them to the city clerk on that point. If they had, you know, an issue, say, with an extermination company, they come in, they want to file a claim, that's up to them to do that. Mm-hmm. So that would be the procedure. So it would go from them to the city clerk. They would file the claim there and then recoup the funds back from that. So that's what they reported out. But I think that they've been down there. They've been doing a bunch of work down there as well. I know McKinley Street, they went around and they did the whole, I seen the pamphlets of that. It actually looked pretty good. They had the rat on it and all that. Yeah. Who thought of that? It would be, you know,
That was
something like
from
that.
Boston, I believe. That was a carryover.
Yeah, it was a good one. Councilman Capone? Excuse customary thanks. Thank you for
I just wanted to tell
appearing.
you, though, that the inspectors are concentrating on the Parkway area that abuts Chelsea Street. The dumpsters of the businesses there, especially the food establishments, have been complying. They're working good with us. We did locate a bit of a problem area down there, the Kentucky Fried Chicken and the Ho Win, the Chinese restaurant. They're gonna combine their dumpsters into one area that's gonna now be fenced in. And we found that the grease container that they were using to bring the fire-related oils or grease, whatever it is, out there to be picked up by the truck, there was a path of, you know, like droppage or whatever. And that's what attracts them. So we got now Kentucky Fried Chicken agreeing to keep that inside with a new system where a truck's gonna be able to pull right up and suck that stuff right out, either through the building or a hose brought into the building, so that problem will be eliminated. So we're making some progress. But it takes
Now,
time.
with the ordinance also, Director, you can have them now, they have to bait as
Right.
well. So now they're gonna have to be mandated to bait around those
No, these are
as
all
well.
great things. It's
So,
gonna really help.
I think
Appreciate
I
it.
think it should help you.
Yep.
Um,
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm glad to, because the question was about claims, and if those folks are watching at home, I'm sure Council Napolitano and I'll reach out to them, let them know that if they do have out-of-pocket expenses, they can file a claim with the city.
Sure.
So I appreciate that, and with that, I would make a motion to refer those back to sponsor.
Motion made and seconded to refer these items back to sponsor collectively. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? You have done so.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Motion made to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? You have done so.